Thank you, Your Honor.
Justice Mendoza.
We'll cover what you spoke about. You mentioned about a referral, that it is an
Can a microphone please be given to Justice Mendoza?
it is an infringement of the one's free exercise of religion. What situation are you referring to? Suppose a mother is in an emergency situation, life-threatening. Is that situation covered by what you mentioned?
No, Your Honor, because the obligation to refer refers to a situation where there is no emergency. Because if there is an emergency, the last clause of the provisions will apply, meaning the conscientious objector must save the life of that patient. So the forced referral clause that we are objecting on grounds of violation of freedom of religion does not contemplate an emergency.
So you are referring to the use of contraceptives approved by FDA?
Yes, Your Honor, or it could be a request for information, Your Honor.
And request for information. If he does not disseminate information on that, he will be penalized.
He can be penalized, Your Honor, under another provision, 23A1.
And you are objecting on that?
Yes, it violates free speech, Your Honor.
Your point is that what he cannot do directly, he is forced to do indirectly. Is that your point?
On the matter of duty to refer, that's correct, Your Honor.
Now, with respect to this, the free exercise of religion, is this absolute?
There's no such thing as absolute right, but it occupies the highest position, being described as inalienable and the most sacred of all human rights in Escritor as well as Ebral Nilag.
In the comments, they said the Act H law is an exception because of the compelling interest test. It passes the compelling interest test. Do you agree on this position?
No, Your Honor. There is no compelling interest involved here, particularly with regard to the questionable provisions. As I said, for instance, with regard to Section 7 and 23, relating to the duty to refer, there is no compelling state interest that will override or trump religious freedom. It's a choice between, on the part of the person seeking reproductive health, he is requesting for information and probably some contraceptive devices like condoms or pills. On the other hand, you have a situation wherein the conscientious objector is being compelled to violate his own religious beliefs. There are remedies and options available to the person seeking reproductive health, but not quite with regard to the conscientious objector, because for him the choice is very dire and direct. Either he violates his own teachings to avoid criminal prosecution, or maintains his religious beliefs despite the criminal sanctions. So in terms of gravity, I think the right of the conscientious objector to religious freedom far outweighs the right of a person for information or request for reproductive device.
How about overpopulation? Do you not consider it a compelling interest of the state?
Your Honor, overpopulation is a very relative term. In terms of persons or population within a kilometer, which we call population density, Philippines only has 374 people within a square kilometer, compared to Japan, Singapore, which have something like more than 1,000 per square kilometer. And yet these people, these countries, are prosperous and economically good. So it's not the problem of population control that actually is the problem, but the problem of governance, I think, at the end of the day. So, and also, may I add, population is not necessarily bad. Just last year, HSBC predicted that the Philippines could become the 16th largest economy in the world by 2050. And one of the major reasons is the population of the Philippines, its young workforce, as compared to the dying economies as described in that research. Economies like the economies in Europe, France, Italy, and even Japan, Singapore, they're all aging and dying. In fact, the former Prime Minister of Singapore publicly twice regretted having adopted a reproductive health system, because now Singapore, Japan, Korea, and even Canada and Russia have now fallen below the replacement rate of 2.1. And therefore, at some point in time, they will begin to age, as in fact Japan, Singapore are aging, and then they will become less competitive because there will be not enough workers to man the shops and to run the economy. And also, just very recently, Your Honor, the papers were screaming with the bankruptcy of Detroit, no less than Detroit. And according to news reports, one of the reasons for its bankruptcy is its declining population. There are more old people than there are young, and therefore the economy can no longer tolerate or manage with such a very small workforce, Your Honor.
So, do you know the total fertility rate of the Philippines right now?
Total fertility rate of,
The Philippines right now.
I think it's 3.6, thereabout.
3.6. And the replacement rate is what?
2.1.
2.1. So we are over that rate.
Yes, but we're falling very fast, Your Honor, even without reproductive health. It has fallen from 7, Your Honor, sometime in the 70s, down to 3, Your Honor. So even without reproductive health, according to economists and demographers, we will actually reach the point close to the replacement rate, even without reproductive health law, Your Honor. And with reproductive health law, that will only facilitate our falling below the replacement rate of 2.1.
It is just a prediction. What was the basis of the prediction of that study?
HSBC.
HSBC.
The basis, Your Honor, is that if you go back in history, the great economies of the old, Britain, France, Italy, they were all driven by human capital. The Industrial Revolution was driven by human capital. And a Nobel Prize winner in economics, Gary Becker, wrote many books emphasizing the importance of human capital, because it is human capital that will run the economy of any nation. And I think one of the sought-after geopolitic strategists, Stratfor, also mentioned population as a key factor, and even predicting that by the middle of the century, the great empires of old will cease to exist because of their aging population.
What is your objection? Can you expound on it, on your reason for objecting to the age and development appropriate information in schools, otherwise sex education in public schools?
You're referring to sex education, Your Honor?
Yes.
We object to sex education on multiple grounds. First, it violates equal protection, because in the law, sex education is mandatory in public schools, but optional in private schools. With regard to parents in public schools, they are left without any choice but to live with sex education for their children, unlike parents in private schools. So I think there is discrimination against the parents of children in public school. Number two, the mandatory sex education in public schools will also violate their natural and primary right under the Constitution to rear and educate their children for civic duty and for the development of moral character. It will also violate the right of the parents to found their family in accordance with their religious beliefs. So, in addition to discriminating against the parents of public school, even the children in public schools will be discriminated because they will have to bear a heavier burden because of the additional topics on reproductive health that will be imposed upon them, unlike their counterparts in private schools without sex education. In fact, the violation of equal protection is so obvious that even parents and children in private schools are exposed to a possible unequal protection. Why? Because the law says private schools have the option. So some private schools may adopt it, some may not. You have a situation wherein people within the same group will be treated differently. And if a particular private school opts for sex education, parents in that school who may feel that sex education is not for the children will again be confronted with a potential violation of their religious freedom, the right to rear and educate their children, and also the right not to be exposed or not to expose their children to sex education. In fact, the multiple discriminations also affect even parents of private schools who opt for or who did not opt for sex education. Because there are parents probably who would want their children to be taught sex education. But if the school where the children go to opt not to adopt sex education, then that parent will be forced to do the sex education by herself. And again, in relation to the other parents whose schools opted for sex education, they are discriminated against, Your Honor.
You are assuming that the public schools, the authorities are responsible.
I cannot assume that, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
Now, regarding a conscientious objector, you mentioned earlier that it is abortion is not allowed under the Constitution,
That's correct.
and that so you have no objection on procedures before fertilization.
As a matter of law, yes, Your Honor. It's not covered by the law.
So, if, for example, a male or female seeks the services of a doctor for vasectomy or tubal ligation, and it is not, he's not, they are not seeking abortion, but only prevention of fertilization. Can a medical or a doctor or a nurse, can he invoke his right to object?
If he's a
based on
Catholic,
his conscience?
if it is a Catholic, Your Honor, because the Catechism of the Catholic Church also considers it intrinsically evil and immoral, sterilization.
But only with respect to Catholics.
Yes, I cannot speak for the other faiths, Your Honor.
But under the Constitution, that is allowed.
Which one, Your Honor?
The operation, the vasectomy or tubal ligation.
I don't know of any law against it, Your Honor, if that's what you mean.
That's all, Chief.